And yeah, it's really awful. I think they said 359 confirmed dead, but 1,000 missing. So there's probably going to, and that's just on the Nepal side. On the Tibet side, there's very little news. But of the 1,000 missing, they said 500 are foreigners. So I guess it's a crossing where people go to Mount Kailash. So there are a lot of Indian people, Indian pilgrims going to Mount Kailash, and also people from America. I don't know if maybe just for trekking. Huh?
There were 40 people from a Tennessee group that were on a spirit.
And just totally washed out. And then, yeah, Americans, Singaporeans, Malaysians, Europeans, so lots and lots of people missing. And looking at the photos, it's like kind of unlikely that, I mean, the water was just water and mud and heavy, heavy, heavy.
Yeah, they describe it as liquid concrete.
Horrible. Yeah. And there was also an email from FPMT, and it mentioned some of the things that Lama Zopa Rinpoche recommended for disasters like this. One was medicine Buddha. So I thought maybe after we do our prayers, we could do just a little medicine Buddha practice for the people who passed away and those who are maybe survived but really suffering, injured, lost loved ones, and so on. Maybe some people are still buried in the mud but alive. I don't know. So yeah, just for all the people affected by this and all other sentient beings as well. And I'm pretty sure that isn't the place where we crossed when we went in 87. I think ours was further east. But I remember I was bringing up all these memories. That year, there was also a lot of flooding. It was in the summertime, and there was a particularly heavy monsoon, and so many of the roads were washed out or flooded, and we would sometimes have to walk. You couldn't drive on the roads. We'd have to get out and walk, sometimes for hours. So even that was like 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. So even then, there were problems, but I guess even more now.
Mary Grace on the Zoom cell adopt is experiencing rain that's
Right.
destroying the old street. The whole climate region is changing.
Yeah.
So the glaciers are melting.
Glaciers are melting, and heavier rains. So a lot more causes. Thank you. I don't know what happened to Venerable Pelgay today. Is she okay? She didn't. Okay. Okay, so let's do our usual prayers. Then, following the prayers, we'll do some medicine Buddha practice.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one. Perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans to the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme science, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate, protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, four lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So let's imagine ourselves surrounded by all other sentient beings, our kind mother sentient beings. And you can think in particular those who've been affected by this disaster in Nepal, Tibet, those who've died or lost loved ones or who are injured or missing. Imagine them right in front of us. And imagine above the head of each and every one of us is the medicine Buddha. So he looks like Shakyamuni Buddha, but his body is made of blue light and holding a bowl filled with medicinal healing nectar with his left hand in his lap. Right hand on the right knee holding the stem of an aurora plant, a medicinal plant. And having all the marks and signs of a Buddha, all the qualities, the realizations of the Buddha. So one nature with all other Buddhas like Shakyamuni Buddha, Tara, Chenrezig, and so on. Sort of like the representative of all the Buddhas and all the three jewels. And let's recite the mantra. While reciting the mantra, imagine a stream of beautiful, blissful white light flowing down from the medicine Buddha's body into the heads of ourselves and all other sentient beings, coming right through the crown of our head, filling our bodies, purifying all the negative karma, defilements, obscurations, all the afflictions, all the causes of suffering and all suffering. Imagine all of that negative energy getting flushed out of our bodies and sinking into the earth, disappearing there. So let's recite the mantra together out loud for 21 times and then continue silently, continuing that visualization. And help me with the chanting. I'm not very good at this one. Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samagate So Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samagate Soha Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Tayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samagate So Dayata Om Bekanze Ayatao Bekande Bekande Rada Samagati Oha. And then visualize the medicine Buddha above the head of each sentient being, dissolving into light, which comes down through the crown to the heart chakra, and our minds and the mind of the medicine Buddha become inseparable. We gain all the qualities and realizations of the medicine Buddha, of all the Buddhas: peace, compassion, love, wisdom, everything we need to become enlightened. Okay, so to continue. So first, before continuing with the book, last week we were looking at a question. It was actually my question about the existence of emptiness, how that's said to be a conventional truth and is realized after an Arya comes out of meditation, meditative equipoise on emptiness, where they're directly realizing emptiness, ultimate truth, and nothing else is appearing in the mind. So it's like a completely non-dualistic experience. And then when they come out of that meditative equipoise back to normal mind, they have this understanding of the existence of emptiness. They have the awareness, oh, emptiness exists, something like that. And then because I found this quote from Geshe Rabten in the book Mind and Its Functions, where he said that the existence, well, he's talking about a normal object like a jug, the existence of a jug is implicitly realized by an eye consciousness that directly perceives the jug. So when you have an eye consciousness seeing the jug, implicitly at the same time that mind realizes the existence of the jug. So then I wondered if the same thing happens with the direct realization of emptiness. When an Arya is directly realizing emptiness, do they implicitly realize the existence of emptiness? I thought that kind of sounded reasonable. And Venerable Damsha very kindly probably spent a lot of time talking with various Geshis about this. And so the answer, the unanimous answer, was no. And the reason is because emptiness is a non-affirming negation, whereas something like a jug is a positive phenomena. So I made a slide. Did you get the slides? That sort of summarizes their reply. So some of you might not be familiar with the term non-affirming negation. So just to quickly explain, it said that all phenomena, everything that exists, is either a positive or a negative. And this has nothing to do with being virtuous or non-virtuous. It's not like that. But it's more about how our mind realizes something conceptually. When we have a conceptual understanding of something, how do we realize that? I'll just summarize what Jeffrey explains in Meditation on Emptiness. If you want to read more about this, you can read in the book Meditation on Emptiness. It's way at the back of the book. It's appendix 4, where he explains positives and negatives. So what he says is, whatever exists is either a positive or a negative phenomenon. And this division is made by way of how objects appear to thought or conceptual consciousness. We have a conceptual understanding of something. And so if a conceptual consciousness has to realize its object by way of openly and explicitly eliminating an object of negation, then that object is a negative. So he gives the example of non-cow. We don't usually talk like that, but they do in debating. Non-cow. Non-cow simply means everything that isn't a cow. Anything that isn't a cow is a non-cow. And so to realize non-cow, you have to you have to negate something. You have to go through a process of negation, negating things. And so then non-cow is a negative phenomenon because you realize it by way of negating something. And on the other hand, a positive phenomena doesn't require that. So for example, cow, to understand cow, you don't have to negate anything. You can just look at a cow, touch a cow, smell a cow, hear a cow, and you can understand cow without negating anything. So that's the difference between negative and positive phenomena. And then within negative phenomena, there's two divisions. There's non-affirming negatives and affirming negatives. And the difference there is that in a non-affirming negative, something is eliminated, but nothing is affirmed in its place. Nothing is there in its place. Whereas with an affirming negative, there's something eliminated, but something else is kind of affirmed. So examples of an affirming negative. I was thinking a windowless room. Like if somebody says, how many windowless rooms do we have in the Abbey? So we can start counting, we have quite a few actually, especially with this building downstairs, rooms without a window. So in that expression, windowless room, to understand a windowless room, there's something negated. What is negated? Windows. And then something is affirmed. Room. Okay. So it's a room, but no windows. So that's an example of an affirming negative. Another one would be an unhappy marriage. So we actually have these expressions, right? We unhappy marriage. Okay, so what is negated there? Happiness. What is affirmed? Marriage. Okay. There's probably a lot of those in the world. So yeah, these are actually part of our experience, even though we don't have until we start learning Buddhist philosophy, we don't think of these as affirming negatives, but they're there, right? And they're things that we know, things we understand. But then a non-affirming negative, that is, emptiness. Emptiness is an example of that. So there, something is negated. What is negated? What is negated in emptiness? Inherent existence. Well, there's actually different kinds of emptiness, but the main one we talk about is emptiness of inherent existence. So what is negated is inherent existence or true existence, or there's all these different synonyms. So that's negated, and nothing is affirmed. Okay, so in emptiness of inherent existence, and nothing is affirmed, and that's really significant, at least in Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition. It may be the case. I think there are other masters, Tibetan masters, who say that, I'm not completely sure about this, but they say that emptiness is an affirming negative. Something is affirmed. So there's this big debate. Who is it that says, Dolpopa, the Jonang master. I'm not familiar with that, but anyway, so it's a point of contention within different Buddhist traditions. But Lama Tsongkhapa, the Galupas are really firm. Emptiness is a non-affirming negative. Nothing is affirmed. Only negation takes place. So anyway, that's just background to the meaning of a non-affirming negative. So then, yeah, this summarizes the question that I had. Can an Arya's meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, implicitly realize the existence of emptiness? So they all said no. I just kind of rewrote what Venerable Damsha summarized, but an implicit realization, when there's an implicit realization, that can arise for a mind apprehending a positive phenomena, like a book or a cow or a cup. Those are positive phenomena. Nothing has to be negated there. So that kind of mind can have an implicit realization, but not for mind apprehending a non-affirming negation. So, yeah, a mind apprehending a non-affirming negation can't realize anything implicitly. So, yeah, non-affirming negation is such that something is negated and nothing else is implied. Therefore, during meditative equipoise on emptiness, there's no implicit realization of the existence of emptiness. But the existence of emptiness can only be realized after arising from meditative equipoise. Then you can have an explicit realization of the existence of emptiness. And the difference between an implicit realization and an explicit realization is that in an explicit realization, the object appears to the mind. And there's the appearance of that object to the mind. Whereas in an implicit realization happens without the object appearing to the mind. The object doesn't appear to the mind, but the mind can still realize it. So that's what Geshe Rabten said, that when we have a direct perception of a jug or a cow or a cup or any object that we can directly perceive, it seems that it may not always happen, but it can happen that that very same mind can realize the existence of that object implicitly. I'm not sure I can answer, but I'll try.
Based on the examples you give of affirming negative, like if based on that term, emptiness of inherent existence is negated, wouldn't existence then be affirmed?
What existence?
Existence, just existence.
Just existence?
Yes. And then in the inferential, not meditative equipoise directly, but what about inferential realization of emptiness of inherent existence?
Yeah, this is a question you asked, and I didn't have a chance to really study carefully the answer, but we're still investigating that, right? Your thought was that was Geshe Ladran who said that?
Yeah, I can send you her reply. Geshe Ladran said that there's no fault in saying that if you if you inferentially realize emptiness because it's by means of a conceptual image, there is no fault in saying that you implicitly also realize the existence of emptiness, which is a conventional truth. Right? The main issue is you cannot realize a conventional truth at the same time as realizing
Having
an
a
ultimate
direct-
truth as a sentient being. I mean, yeah, directly.
Direct realization. Yeah, so when you have a direct realization of emptiness, they say no conventional truth appears, no conventional phenomenon appears, only emptiness, which is an ultimate truth. That's the only thing that appears, but no conventional truths appear. So the existence, I don't know what you mean by existence, but existence. Yeah, but that's the existence of emptiness. But that's this whole point where they said, no, existence of emptiness is not implicitly realized at the time that you have the direct realization of emptiness. But it seems that it can be realized when you have an inferential realization of emptiness, because that's a conceptual mind, and it can not perceive, but know, realize conventional truths.
So for an inferential realization, the emptiness of inherent existence is not a non-affirming negative.
It is a non-affirming negative.
It is not,
It is.
because existence is implicit realized.
No, when you have an inferential realization, it's a conceptual mind, and so there's a mental image, or what is it called? Venerable calls it meaning generality, conceptual image. So there's an image, there's a mental image of emptiness, and the mental image of emptiness isn't emptiness. It's a conventional truth. However, that mind still does realize emptiness. It does realize emptiness, and that emptiness that is realized is a non-affirming negative. Emptiness is always a non-affirming negative. This is my understanding. I could be wrong, but emptiness is always a non-affirming negative. But the problem is you're not directly realizing that emptiness. You're realizing it via a mental image, which the mental image would be a conventional truth. But they're both realized. That's my understanding. Because some people think, oh, if it's just a mental image of emptiness, that means you're not really realizing emptiness. But my understanding when we've asked that question is they say, no, you are perceiving emptiness. There is a, not perceiving, you are experiencing emptiness. You are realizing emptiness. But the problem is there's this kind of mental image of emptiness mixed. The two are mixed indistinguishably. But still, the emptiness you realize at that time, I could be wrong. Check with your teachers. Check with your teachers. But that is a non-affirming negative.
I understand that. I mean, my understanding is, I mean, that's Arya Nagarjuna's position, that it has to be a non-affirming negative, because if there is an affirming negative, there is something there that could potentially come back, and then is not going to be able to clear that. Wisdom is not able to clear away this ignorance. Yeah. But then there are advocates, great scholars that says that is an affirming negative. So so my point is that based on what you were saying about an unhappy marriage is affirm. So if it's inherent existence, you negate inherence, but existence could be affirmed.
Oh, I see. I don't know. I haven't heard that. I mean, there's lots of different points, lots of different arguments from this person to that person. I don't know all of these, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm just saying what I've learned. Yeah. But anyway, we have to go through a conceptual, inferential realization of emptiness first before we can have the direct realization. There's no way to get to the direct realization of emptiness, which is definitely, directly perceiving a non-affirming negative. And that's what eliminates ignorance. But we can't get there without going through that inferential realization. So that's like an avenue, a doorway, to get to that direct realization. And then once you've got the inferential realization, you continue meditating more and more and more and more and more. And that mental image gets thinner and thinner and thinner and finally disappears. And then you have this direct, naked, non-conceptual realization of emptiness. But yeah, that's the way to go. Okay, so if any of this is difficult to understand or doesn't make any sense at all, don't worry. It's actually kind of a side topic that I brought up because, when there was something in the book about emptiness, this quote from Chandrakirti saying that Nirvana was a conventional truth or something like that. So Lama Tsongkhapa was just trying to explain what that meant, and said that, yeah, there's this existence of emptiness. The existence of emptiness, that is a conventional truth. And that is realized after you have the direct realization of emptiness. So then I just got curious about that and wanted to know more. Yeah, kind of went down this rabbit hole. But let's come back out again and continue. Yeah, so don't worry if you don't understand this. It's difficult. There's still things that we're trying to figure out about it. So let's see. So we were where we left off last is on page 393, right in the middle. And so there was this discussion that came up because there was an objection. Somebody made an objection. And this is related to how a Buddha's wisdom sees ultimate truth. Somebody thought that when a Buddha's mind, a Buddha's wisdom sees ultimate truth, they don't see anything. They don't see anything at all. And they got this idea because of some statements made by Chandrakirti in his auto commentary to the Middle Way. He said basically, they see it by means of not seeing. They see ultimate truth by way of not seeing. So there's somebody thought, oh, that means they don't see anything. Lama Tsongkhapa said, no, that's not correct. That's not the meaning. But rather, when a Buddha sees ultimate truth, emptiness, they only see reality, suchness, but they don't see conventional truths like the aggregates. Okay, those things don't appear, but emptiness does appear. Emptiness is seen. Okay, so we were in the middle of that discussion, and there are these statements that appear in sutras and also in the treatises, things like seeing without seeing is most excellent, or not seeing is the best seeing. So there are these kind of statements, very cryptic statements in this. What does that mean? And so what this means is that, yeah, when the best seeing, the best experience one can have is seeing emptiness directly. That's like the Arya's meditative equipoise, directly seeing emptiness. And when having that experience of directly perceiving emptiness, nothing else appears, no conventional phenomena. So even though you're sitting there meditating on emptiness, you have no awareness of your body or yourself, your mind, anything around you, anything in the world. None of those things appear. Only emptiness appears, which is this non-affirming negative. So that's the meaning of that. Okay, so then, middle of page 393, Lama Tsongkhapa gives a quote from a sutra, Engaging in the Two Truths Sutra, which says, divine child, this ultimate truth, possessing all supreme qualities, transcends all objects up to and including the objects of omniscient wisdom. It is not like what is expressed by saying it is an ultimate truth. So I'm going to first just read this little section, and then I'm going to read from Thupten Jinpa's translation, Illuminating the Intent, because the same argument is in there, but it's more extensive and I think it's more clear. So I'll just read the next little bit. This explains that when you say this is an ultimate truth, it means object and subject are not seen as separate appearances for the mind. Therefore, the quotation is a source supporting that dualistic appearances stop, rather than that the Buddha does not realize the ultimate. So it's not so clear here what is being said, but I I think in illuminating the intent, it's more clear. So from that book, it's on page 253 if you want to look it up. So first, that quote from Sutra, Jinpa's translation says, "O celestial child, this ultimate truth, which is endowed with all supreme qualities, transcends being an object of cognitions up through a Buddha's omniscient gnosis." How do you say that word? Gnos? Gnosis?
The G is silent.
Gnosis. So, gnosis. Okay. Some, yeah, Geshe-Zopa like to use that term too. But I think it's because there's two different terms in Tibetan for wisdom. There's Sherab, which, like in the perfection of wisdom, that's the more common one, Sherab, and so that's usually translated as wisdom. But then there's this other term, Yeshe, that also means wisdom. And so you want to find a different term for that so you don't mix it up with Sherab. So some use transcendental wisdom or pristine wisdom, but some use this term, gnosis. So just to have another term for wisdom. Okay, then it goes on. It does not exist in the manner expressed in this statement. This is ultimate truth. All phenomena are false in that they are deceptive realities. So that's the quote from Sutra. Then the commentary, this is Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to that quote in that book, Illuminating the Intent. The meaning of this citation is as follows. Up to the phrase, up through a Buddha's omniscient gnosis, indicates how ultimate truth transcends being the object of the omniscient gnosis. So that sounds kind of strange to say that ultimate truth is beyond even the Buddha's omniscience. What does that mean? I was like, even the Buddha can't know ultimate truth? So I don't think that's true. So he goes on to say, as to the sense in which ultimate truth transcends this gnosis, this is indicated by the next part that reads, it does not exist in the manner expressed up to where it says deceptive realities. As an example, when someone says, this is ultimate truth, the subject and object appear as two distinct entities to the thought that follows after that utterance. For the Buddha's omniscient gnosis, perceiving the way things really are, however, ultimate truth lies beyond the sphere of knowing it in such a dualistic manner. So in other words, if someone says, this is ultimate truth, then we will probably have some kind of thought about ultimate truth, like, oh, ultimate truth, that sounds really cool. Tell me more about it, or something like that. So when we have a thought about ultimate truth that follows such a statement, there's a dualistic appearance. There seems to be an I over here, a mind over here, and then ultimate truth over there, like two distinct, separate things. So that is the normal experience of things. But in the case of the Buddha, when the Buddha knows ultimate truth, there's no duality, no sense of duality. The subject and object appearing different, distinct. Not just the Buddha, but they say anytime an Arya has that experience of directly realizing emptiness, then there's no sense of subject-object duality. It's like subject merges with object. There's only emptiness, a non-dualistic appearance. And then the commentary goes on to say, all phenomena within dualistic perception are false and deceptive, and as such they do not exist from the perspective that perceives only the undeceiving truth of suchness. So what I understand from that is that to that aspect of the Buddha's mind, remember, each moment of Buddha's mind has these two aspects, one that knows ultimate truths, one that knows conventional truths. So the aspect of the Buddha's mind that knows ultimate truths does so in a totally dualistic, non-dualistic way. No appearance of any duality and no appearance of conventional truths like aggregates. So this is just more information about, the Buddha's way of seeing ultimate truths, that it's totally without dualistic appearances, which includes seeing conventional truths like the aggregates. But that doesn't mean that the Buddha's mind doesn't see anything at all. Yeah, there's nothing, because there is, I guess it's like nothing. I say it's like space. When you have direct realization of emptiness, it is like space. So it is kind of like nothing there, but it isn't nothing. It's ultimate truth. It is a phenomenon. It's the ultimate nature of things and the ultimate nature of everything. So it is an object. It is something to be known. So, yeah. So then, continuing, the Entering the Middle Way auto commentary also says, he fully realizes true nature by directly perceiving that reality without touching produced things. That is why he is called Buddha. From the perspective of seeing suchness with a Buddha's wisdom that knows the ultimate mode, only reality is said to be realized without touching that which is other-powered. So I guess touching just means like perceiving. So the only thing that is realized by that mind, the Buddha's wisdom of emptiness, is emptiness, suchness, reality, and nothing which is other-powered. So that's kind of funny, that term other-powered, because usually that's used in the Chittamatra school for dependent impermanent things. Other-powered means depending on causes and conditions rather than able to stand alone. But yeah, I think here it just means probably conventional truths. Conventional truths don't appear, only emptiness appears. So then, top of page 394, it says, the movement of the mind and mental factors coming to an end. So this is something that it's in Chandrakirti's Entering the Middle Way, Madhyamaka Avatara. I think it's towards the end of the text when it's talking about the Buddha's mind, the Buddha's omniscient mind. And I remember coming across this statement, and I was like, "What? It's really no more mind and no more mental factors in the Buddha's mind? What?" I was really shocked by that. But here he's explaining what that means. So the movement of the mind and mental factors coming to an end means that when suchness becomes manifest, the movement of conceptualization comes to an end. It does not indicate that the mind or mental factors do not exist. So, so that's how it's explained, that Chandrakirti is talking about conceptual mind and mental factors that accompany conceptual minds. So those stop for Buddha. You've probably heard that before. in the mind of a Buddha, there's no more conceptualization. Every experience a Buddha has is direct perception, directly perceiving phenomena, but without any conceptualization, no mental images, but just directly, nakedly perceiving everything, both ultimate truths and conventional truths. And that there are still, so there's still mind there. Buddha's mind still has mind, just not conceptual mind, but direct perception. And there are still mental factors. Is that surprising to you that the Buddha still has mental factors? Yeah, love and compassion, those are mental factors. Wisdom is a mental factor. And I think the 5 omnipresent mental factors are still there. Feeling, but no more suffering, painful, unpleasant feelings. And I think also neutral feelings. So I think all the feelings in the Buddha's mind are pleasant feelings, bliss. And then discrimination, knowing one thing from another, attention, intention, contact. They say Buddha does have sense powers, seeing and hearing and so forth. And I seem to recall there's a debate about the Buddha's sense perceptions, like eye consciousness and ear consciousness and so on. Are those omniscient? Like when the Buddha sees something with his eye consciousness, does that very same eye consciousness see all other phenomena, everything else that exists? It seems like it should. If every moment of the Buddha's mind is omniscient, it should see everything. But apparently there's debate about that, so I don't know. But yeah, Buddha still has sense consciousnesses, as well as mental consciousness and mental factors. It,
Main mind be bodhicitta for the Buddha?
well, bodhicitta would be there, but also, I don't know if that main mind would be bodhicitta. I don't know. Good question. Certainly bodhicitta would be there, but all the other mental factors as well. Except for the afflictive ones. Of course, the afflictions are gone, ignorance and so on. Those are not there anymore. But all I would think the omniscient and the object ascertaining mental factors would be there. Maybe not sleep. That's one of the 4, what are those called? Variable, yeah. I don't think a Buddha needs sleep. No, wouldn't sleep. And regret, would the Buddha have regret? Probably not. That wouldn't make sense.
There's also a debate about that, isn't there? That does a Buddha's mind have bodhicitta, which is the aspiration to achieve full awakening. The Buddha's mind is fully awakened, so
Yeah, that's right. Does a Buddha have bodhicitta?
would have some
Because
very
I want to
virtuous.
become enlightened to help all sentient beings, but you're already enlightened. But what is it? I think what some say, I think Jetsun Shuki Gelsen does say that a Buddha does have bodhicitta. And they say, well, how is it explained? I can't remember. Yeah. Wanting to lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. That is still there. You're already enlightened, but you haven't stopped your work for sentient beings. Now you're leading all sentient beings to enlightenment. But anyway, yeah, there's a debate about that. How do we know what's in a Buddha's mind? I mean, it seems like until we get there, until we're in that mind, having that experience, then difficult to know. Okay, so then there's this quote from Clear Words by Chandrakirti. Conceptualization is movement of the mind. Because suchness is the absence of conceptualization, it is free from that movement. As is set forth in a sutra, what is ultimate truth If there is not even movement of the mind in it, what need is there to mention words? The statement that there is no movement of the mind is explained to me in the absence of conceptual thought. Moreover, the Entering the Middle Way auto-commentary sets forth that at the time of an Arya's meditative equipoise on a learning path, it has not come to a permanent end, whereas at the time of Buddha, it has. So what that means is, so for an Arya who's still on a learning path, that they haven't yet reached their goal of enlightenment, so when they are in meditative equipoise, conceptualization stops, but not permanently. It's just temporary. When they come out of meditative equipoise, then they again have conceptual thoughts. But at the time of Buddhahood, then conceptualization has completely stopped. Apart from that, the Entering the Middle Way auto-commentary establishes with an accompanying source that if that true nature did not exist, it would be pointless for bodhisattvas to accomplish and experience their difficult conduct for the sake of realizing it. It says, someone might ask, what is their nature? Here, nature means the nature that is realized by bodhisattvas. That which is unfabricated about them and which does not depend on anything else, their intrinsic nature that is realized by a consciousness free from the defect of ignorance. To those who ask, does it exist or not? We would answer, if it did not exist, then for what purpose would bodhisattvas cultivate the path of the perfections? Why would bodhisattvas exert hundredfold effort in order to realize reality? So that's saying that, yeah, if there wasn't emptiness, the ultimate truth, the true nature of things, if that didn't exist, then it would be pointless for bodhisattvas to work so hard to cultivate bodhicitta, practice the 6 perfections, achieve enlightenment. Why is that? It would be pointless for them to do all that work. Well, anyway, he goes on. I think there's more. And so Chandrakirti's source for saying this is the Cloud of Jewels Sutra. He then quotes the following from the Cloud of Jewels Sutra. Child of the lineage, if the ultimate did not exist, pure conduct would be meaningless and it would be pointless for Tathagatas to come forth. Since the ultimate exists, bodhisattvas are called those skilled in the ultimate. So he explains, if ultimate truths did not exist, it would be pointless to engage in conduct for the sake of the purity of final nirvana. It would be impossible for disciples to realize it. It would be pointless for Buddha to come to the world in order to make them realize it. And the great children of the victors would not be skilled in ultimate truths. This is why he quotes a sutra that establishes that ultimate truths exist. Therefore, it is simply wrong to say that the great master's system, great master referring to Chandrakirti, propounds that ultimate truths are not objects of knowledge and that the wisdom realizing suchness does not exist in an Arya's meditative equipoise. So, if ultimate truths didn't exist, if they were non-existent, I think it means then it wouldn't be possible to attain nirvana, to attain enlightenment, because the attainment of nirvana, enlightenment, depends on ultimate truth, depends on realizing ultimate truth, which enables us to stop ignorance, to get rid of ignorance. which is the root of samsara. So if there was no ultimate truth that could be realized, then we wouldn't be able to attain nirvana. So what's the point of working so hard on the Bodhisattva's path, trying to reach enlightenment, to help all sentient beings? None of that would be possible. It would all be, impossible, useless. That makes sense? I think that's what he's saying. And so it would also be pointless for a Buddha to come into the world and teach the perfection of wisdom. Teach, well, if it doesn't even exist, then he can't teach it. He would be teaching something non-existent. So, yeah. So anyway, the Buddha himself said this in that sutra, Cloud of Jewels Sutra. Then, so clearly the ultimate does exist. And bodhisattvas are those who are skilled in the ultimate. And that last sentence we just read, where it says it's wrong to say that Chandrakirti says that ultimate truths are not objects of knowledge. So in Jeffrey's translation, there's a footnote saying that one Tibetan translator, Ngok Loden Sherab, he actually asserted that ultimate truths are not objects of knowledge. I don't know why, but anyway, he had a reason. Maybe because it seems like when you have this direct realization of emptiness, it really does seem like there's nothing there. So maybe that was his view. Venerable Karya.
Venerable, that argument for me looks a little weird. I was just thinking which are the arguments that maybe the Christian can apply for the existence of God. And they were saying, what is the pointless if we're not practicing the 10 commandments, and what is the I just can change the labels and it would be exactly the same argument.
So you're saying the Christians prove the existence of God by saying, well, if God didn't exist, then what would
is
be
the point of training this path?
Yeah, like being a good person and so on and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, what comes to my mind is a friend or somebody I met who was a very staunch Buddhist, and met, I don't know if it was a Christian or a Jew, and they were having a discussion, and he said, I don't believe in God. And this other person was like shocked, like, if you don't believe in God, then there would be no ethics. There would be no basis for being a good person and refraining from non-virtue and so that, something like that, like the 10 Commandments, like you say. And this friend who's a Buddhist said, no, that's not true. I mean, just common sense. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but, just common sense. You do harmful things, then other people suffer, you suffer. So just looking at the immediate effect of harmful negative actions, you can see those need to be stopped. You don't need to believe in a God that's going to reward or punish you. So that's one way of answering that question without having to. But yeah, I don't know if that's really similar here to this argument. But I think it's a lot more. Because, those who believe in God, a creator God, the view is, well, you just follow God's wishes, God's directions, and then you will be rewarded. And if you don't, you'll be punished. So it's kind of like all in the hands of God. So in the Buddhist tradition, it's not like that. It's very, very different. The Bodhisattva's path, their goal is to become kind of like becoming God, not really, but like that, reaching that highest state possible, totally free of everything wrong, everything imperfect, totally developed in everything perfect, everything virtuous. Becoming that yourself so that then you can work to benefit others. So it isn't just about being good and not doing bad things, but developing your potential, this potential that you have, which is sort of buried under a lot of obscurations. You have to get rid of those obscurations to bring out that potential. And how do you get rid of those obscurations? You have to realize the true nature of things. So if there wasn't that possibility of realizing ultimate truth, the true nature of things, then it's like, well, that whole path just doesn't make any sense. You can't get rid of your obscurations. You can't develop your potential for enlightenment. I think it's not quite the same.
I completely agree with you. And I was just trying to, for me, that is why this particular argument, I wouldn't use that argument. You gave me other different that makes completely more sense for me. That was like,
Yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of, so I think, the last 2 pages, 3 pages, Lama Tsongkhapa has been giving all these different reasons to point out how that person's objection is faulty. Yeah, the person who said, oh, when Buddha realizes emptiness, there's nothing there. They don't realize anything. There's no object. And he's quoting from Chandrakirti to kind of back up what he's saying. So Lama Tsongkhapa is kind of going point by point through what that person is saying and pointing out that no, you got it wrong. So this is just one of those points, but the other, there's also the others. Nambalosa.
And the person that is being addressed is a Buddhist. So it's not the same as trying to prove God by your scriptures to someone who doesn't even believe in your scriptures. And the most recent part of it is saying, well, it says, therefore, it is simply wrong to say that the great master's system propounds that ultimate truths are not objects of knowledge. It seems to be arguing that you're misinterpreting this master system. So, it's more argument that says you're misinterpreting this master system because look at what else he says. And you're taking it out of context. So it's not just an argument to say, oh, if you're not just telling someone who doesn't believe in Buddhism that this doesn't meet with what the Buddha taught or what the masters taught. It's arguing that to someone who does accept these other points.
Presumably. But anyway, yeah, the person has obviously read Chandrakirti and is familiar with what Chandrakirti says in his commentaries, but he's misinterpreting what Chandrakirti says. Well, actually, he sees contradiction. If you go back to the original objection, he sees a lot of contradictions in what Chandrakirti says. So Lama Tsongkhapa is just trying to straighten him out. Explain all these points that he misunderstands. Is there a microphone over there? Oh.
So there's some online questions. One of them is, would the Sautantrikas say there is an implicitly existent emptiness that is established at the time an Arya directly realizes emptiness?
So Tantrika or Svatantrika? Is it
it's just
SAU or SVA?
SAU.
Well, the Tantric. So what was the question again?
It is, would the Sautantrikas say there is an implicitly existent emptiness that is established at the time an Arya directly realizes emptiness?
Okay, so this is, I think, related to some tricky point. The Sautrantika school says that direct perception cannot perceive permanent phenomena. It can only perceive impermanent phenomena. And emptiness, although they mainly use the term selflessness, is permanent, is a permanent phenomena. So then an Arya's direct perception that, there should be this thing, an Arya's direct perception of emptiness or selflessness. How does that work? If emptiness or selflessness is something permanent and direct perception cannot perceive something permanent. So what's going on there? Does that make sense? So I can't remember the exact language. It might be implicit, but it's explained in Elizabeth Napper's book, Mind in Tibetan Buddhism. So what they say, as far as I can remember, is that so the Arya's direct realization, it's a yogic direct perception. So it directly perceives the aggregates, and I think it's implicitly or indirectly it realizes their absence of, they don't say like emptiness of inherent existence, but emptiness of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. So they indirectly or implicitly realize the aggregates, there's no self-sufficient, substantially existent self anywhere in the aggregates. So it does seem to be an implicit realization.
Some more questions. Someone asks, how do we determine we have a realization of emptiness inferentially? And what exactly do we realize? A generic image or a reason proving emptiness? Since we do not have a direct view of emptiness, how do we generate a generic image of it?
Well, when you have an inferential realization of emptiness, you don't generate a generic image. It's just there. It's just, yeah. Anytime, I mean, we have them all the time. Anytime we have a thought, a memory, any kind of conceptual experience that we have, there's always a generic image. It just comes with that mind. We don't have to do anything to generate it, to create it. It's just there. When you think about what you ate for breakfast, for example, you think about something that happened earlier today, what you ate for breakfast, who you talked to, what you saw, and so on. So when we have those kinds of thoughts, those kind of memories, there's a generic image, a mental image there. So we have them all the time. So it said that, yeah, when you realize you have an inferential realization of emptiness, that arises in dependence on a reason. You go through a process of reasoning, and your mind gets it, realizes, the I is empty of inherent existence because it's a dependent arising. So your mind finally gets that. And I mean, I don't know how you tell. It's probably quite strong to, maybe you even get a jolt, like the Dalai Lama talks about when he was reading a text, one of the texts about emptiness, and I guess it was probably an inferential realization. He felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Physically, he, shaken. It's really strong when you get that experience. Yeah, that's, I don't know. I haven't had that experience, but that's his description. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but it's a pretty powerful experience when you really get it. Did I answer all those? Yeah, more or less. And yeah, I think in Jeffrey Hopkins' book called Emptiness Yoga, sort of lectures that he gave about emptiness when he was still a professor at the University of Virginia. And there was one point where he said something like, you know, if it doesn't shake you up, you know, the fact that everything we perceive is actually wrong, the actual way that things exist is totally opposite to the way we see things. If that doesn't shake you up, it means you haven't really understood it. I mean, if we really understood that, it would be like startling. So we hear that, we think that, we meditate on it. But if we don't feel shocked by that, then we're probably quite far from an actual realization. Have you ever seen anyone jump on their seat? And they also tell this story about, I don't know if it was Lama Tsongkhapa who was giving a lecture. Somebody was giving a lecture, a teaching on emptiness, and the emptiness of the eye in particular. And one of the monks in the audience just suddenly grabbed his clothes like that. And the teacher said, "Ah, you got it." So, I don't know. Any other? We can continue a little further. Let's see, where did I? Okay, yeah. A third of the way down, page 395. Furthermore, the Entering the Middle Way auto commentary says, therefore, it is posited through imputation that suchness is realized, but actually, it is not that something is known by something else, because both the knower and the object of knowledge are unarisen. So that is really surprising. What does this mean? The first part means that to posit the realization of suchness by taking wisdom and suchness separately as subject and object is to posit it merely from the perspective of conventional consciousness, rather than positing it from the perspective of that wisdom. The knower is unarisen means that in relation to its object, which is not inherently arisen, it is like water poured into water. So what this is saying is that when you have it's talking about the direct realization of emptiness or suchness. So when that happens in somebody's mind, suchness is directly realized, then there's no sense of a separate subject and object. That's our normal experience. There's an eye over here, looking at something over there, experiencing something over there. So there's sort of two things going on there. But that doesn't happen when you have the direct realization of emptiness. And they have this expression, it's like water poured into water. So let me just see. So saying water poured into water, I mean, you know, like if you have a pitcher of water and that's maybe half full, then you take a cup of water and you pour it into the pitcher. Can you distinguish the water that came from the cup and the water that was already there in the pitcher? Can you? No, so they become completely merged indistinguishably. So that's used to describe the experience when you have the direct realization of emptiness. Your mind merges with emptiness and becomes like indistinguishable. But that doesn't mean that the mind and emptiness do actually become one thing. It just seems like that, but that's not actually the case. So I found an explanation of this in volume 8, page 313. It says, the metaphor of water poured into water does not mean that the wisdom realizing emptiness and emptiness have become one in the sense of being identical. Emptiness is a permanent, unconditioned phenomenon. And wisdom, that's the mind realizing it, is a conditioned phenomenon. It's impermanent. It's an impermanent phenomenon. So they cannot become one and the same, right? So one is impermanent and one is permanent. So they can't be the same. And then one is mind and one is, I don't know. Emptiness isn't mind. It can't become mind. So it's not that they really become one and the same. And then it goes on to say, however, the experience of duality between subject and object has ceased, and experientially they cannot be differentiated. So it just seems like they become indistinguishable, as if they are one thing, but that isn't literally true. Does that make sense? But yeah, that must be quite an amazing experience. Yeah. Merging with the object. People sometimes talk about having these non-dual experiences, not with emptiness, but maybe with something else, like, looking at another person or looking at a sunset or whatever. They just feel as if they're kind of merging into that object, and there's no longer a strong sense of self, I, me over here. Have you ever had that kind of experience? Maybe on without drugs. Yeah, well, I think it can happen. Yeah, it can happen. Music? Mm. It's kind of nice, isn't it?
Just the subject of conceptual mind.
Not necessarily. Well, I guess, yeah, I guess that's probably part of it. Your mind isn't going blah, blah, blah and thinking about your to-do list and all these other things. So maybe temporarily that sort of rumination stops, but there's probably still some conceptuality going on, maybe. I don't know. But probably, yeah, your sense of I, big fat I, ego, probably decreases very much. Let me see. Just a little bit left of this section before we're moving to something else. Let me just see if I can finish it. Okay, then Chandrakirti's entering the middle way auto commentary says further, since mind and mental factors do not operate with respect to suchness, which is the object of wisdom, it is actualized only by the body. So this is also strange. But body here means sambhogakaya, the enjoyment, not just like this kind of body, but the sambhogakaya. In this statement, the object to be actualized is suchness. The subject, wisdom, is that which actualizes it, and the complete enjoyment body is the agent of the actualization, the exalted knower. The manner in which it is thereby actualized is by way of stopping conceptual movement of minds and mental factors, as explained above. It should be known from the explanation in the auto commentary that the body, the kaya, the holy body, by means of which suchness is actualized, has the nature of peace, because it is free from minds and mental factors. If a Buddha did not perceive the aggregates and the like, this would deny his knowledge of things in their variety, as well as the diversity of all objects, because to exist and not be known by a Buddha contradict each other. So this thing about the body, I think what it's saying is that at the time of becoming a Buddha, right? So the way it's explained in the sutra system is that the bodhisattva, so just becoming a Buddha, just before becoming a Buddha, you're a bodhisattva, 10th ground bodhisattva, right at the end of being a bodhisattva, like that last moment of being a bodhisattva before you become a Buddha, And at that time, the Bodhisattva is in Akanishta, this Pure Land, and they have a body that is like the Sambhogakaya. In other words, it has all the marks and signs like the Sambhogakaya, but it's said that they're not as bright, they're not as clear, a little bit less clear. But they have that kind of body. It's a bodhisattva body. It's actually Akanishta is in the fourth concentration of the form realm. And so it's a body made of light, very pure, and looking like a Sambhogakaya, but not yet exactly a Sambhogakaya. So they have that kind of body, and they're sitting there in meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness. They have just a teeny weeny bit of cognitive obscurations left to get rid of. So they have this last, cleaning of the cognitive obscurations, that last bit left, and then the next moment they're Buddha, and they have omniscient mind arising. And so, and the body that they have, which already looked like a Sambhogakaya, now it becomes a Sambhogakaya. So I think that's why it said it's actualized by the body. So there's the body, there's a body, Sambhogakaya body, and then the mind, because of getting rid of the last trace of cognitive obscurations, now becomes omniscient mind, and then no more conceptualization, no more thoughts, only direct perception of all phenomena, all ultimate truths as well as all conventional truths appear each moment simultaneously. So yeah, the next part is going to then talk about the how the Buddha perceives conventionalities. So we sort of come to the end of the explanation of how a Buddha perceives ultimate truths. And next, we'll look at how they perceive conventional truths, which are called varieties. The variety, the diversity of things. Any last questions? We're just at the end of our time, but
I'm still puzzling over the Buddha having mental factors. In that, it's, and this may be totally off, but it would seem that at that point, when that mind is so, an omniscient mind is like pervaded by every single virtuous mental factor that there is, right? So how come, in some ways, that doesn't become the main mind of the omniscient mind of the Buddha? I mean, that there would be almost indistinguishable and inseparable part of that mind.
why don't the mental factors become the main mind? Is that
Yeah.
what you're asking?
Yeah, like you would think that mind is totally saturated there. Individual mental factors not even mattering anymore. I don't know, that maybe just a poetic sense of the experience.
I mean, I don't know, but they say that they're, when you study Lorik, this is the way of dividing mind. There's main minds and there's mental factors, and they always accompany each other. You can never have a main mind without mental factors. You can never have mental factors without main mind. They're like stuck. So there's always, I guess it's just the nature of the mind, how the mind is, that there's always that, two aspects, main minds, even omniscient mind. That's my understanding, even though, but again, how can we know for sure until we get there? But of course, it would be a very different experience than in our minds. But I think sometimes it's like a little tiny insect, like a flea that's on the body of a big animal, like a bear. And the flea is, how does a flea understand the bear? I just think, for me, trying to understand the Buddha, It's a bit like that. I can't fully understand, but we can still try, and it is helpful to try to understand a Buddha's mind, a Buddha's experience, just to see our own mind in comparison with that, and realize, yeah, not to get discouraged, but what we need to do with our mind in order to bring it to that state of a Buddha's mind. But that it's possible to do. Yeah, we're not stuck the way we are, but we can transform our minds and make them like the Buddha's mind. Be inspired to do that. Okay, so let's dedicate.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lusang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.